Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Colony Drop, a Gundam podcast. My name is Brian, my co-pilot is Isaac, and this is a podcast where we talk about anything and everything related to Mobile Suit Gundam. From the anime, the movies, the models, the food, you name it, it's all fair game. On this week's episode, we conclude our review of the 1991 film Mobile Suit Gundam F91. We'll pick up right where we left off last week, talking about the bugs. So let's get back to the action. Full speed ahead, Space Arc.
But we jump it back again to some banter between Zabine and Crossbone Vanguard pilots, and they're discussing rumors of some type of new weapon that can kill large numbers of people, and it's called, I think they say bugs, or what's codenamed Bug. So I felt like that the sort of lead up to the bugs was maybe something that was done better in the story. This is something they competently did in F91.
Yeah, this turned out to kind of be the main plot.
Yeah, and to the Crossbone Vanguard's credit, they're very good at keeping things a secret, since nobody had any idea what bugs were unless you were directly working with them. But we'll get to that near the end of the story. Karozo meets again with Cecily's mom and Theo, and without even moving, he kills Theo. Did you notice that? Yeah.
I did. So Karozo somehow kills Theo. I was assuming it was poison of some sort.
But did he drink or eat, or?
I don't know. I don't think there was any drinking or eating going on. Maybe it was like a well-timed previous poisoning somehow, or I'm not really sure. We do find out later on that Karozo has some interesting abilities, and I was thinking maybe that played into it. But it wasn't super clear exactly how he kills Theo. I mean, maybe it's fleshed out a bit more in the novelization, so that might be interesting to find out. But
before he dies, though, Theo said something interesting to Nadia. Like, he made it seem like he was actually helping her and playing along with Karozo and the Crossbone Vanguard. Did you catch that?
I don't remember that part. No.
I vaguely remember him, or maybe he was lying to her, and he actually was with the Crossbone Vanguard, since he had an evil laugh at the beginning of the story as they were taking over the colony. But yeah, he did say something along the lines of, I think, like, everything I'm doing is really to try to protect you and Cecily. So maybe he was playing along more than we thought. But
maybe he thought because he was getting Cecily into a position of power.
But
I'm not sure.
Back at the Space Arc, we meet up with Seabook's mom, and they start discussing a bit about what makes the F91 different, how it has a biocomputer and there's a biosensor in it. But I felt like the writing kind of fell apart here because it didn't really explain much to me what was so special about it. Did you grasp the uniqueness of the biocomputer and biosensor from what the characters were saying? I couldn't really.
Yeah, so it just seemed like a more advanced version of the Psycho Frame, which itself was sort of a more advanced version of the biosensor from the Zeta Gundam. I think it's further going on that idea of controlling a machine with your thoughts. But yeah, I agreed.
Yeah.
The way they explained it didn't seem much different from the explanation of the Psycho Frame from Charged Counterattack. So you kind of just have to assume, okay, well, this is somewhat the next step, I guess. Although the Psycho Frame is definitely geared towards new types. I mean, the use of the term new type in this film was interesting in that it didn't seem like new types were top of mind at first, but then all of a sudden, everybody was new type by the end. Like there was some line, I forget who said it. He was talking about new types from the 1 year war-ish era, and he's like, yeah, there used to be these people named new types, and they were just the most miserable lot of them all. And I was like, that's pretty fair, because all the new types generally across all the stories, they do have pretty miserable psyches. And we go from people wondering what a new type is to, at the very end of the story, Cecily clearly knows what a new type is all of a sudden. So there was definitely some gaps there.
God.
Again, due to the pacing. But I don't think that when they explain the F91, they don't talk about new types, right? They just say the biocomputer, right?
Pretty much. It's got variable speed beam rifles. It's got a beam shield, and it can leave after images that actually have mass.
Yep.
So it's very prototype, but at the same time, aside from, I don't know, its armament, there's nothing too groundbreaking.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's a miniature suit too, so you got that. Let me just back up a bit. It is kind of groundbreaking. So.
Yeah. This is also the part where we see a lot of that like really aggressive Federation colonel guy who keeps like calling Seabook a new type and insisting
Oh,
that he
yeah.
pilot the Gundam. And I think he puts Seabook in the suit and he like kicks him. He's
Yeah.
just like, "Kick, just go, pilot the suit, Seabook."
Cosmo.
Oh.
I think his name was Cosmo.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, or no, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, we meet that guy. He's kind of more of a blumbering, kind of loud idiot than an actual threat to Seabook. I imagine over a series he would have been kind of an interesting character, maybe a jerk with a heart of gold or something like that, right?
Yeah. He was also part of that conversation where they said, "Well, we have no one else to pilot this, so you have to do it." And I was kind of like, "What about the other guy who actually knows how to pilot a mobile suit named Bearded?"
Yeah. Why didn't he get in it? He's actually an adult and like a soldier.
I don't know. Who knows?
The gut couldn't fit like the seatbelt. Can't get in a pilot suit.
It's over the weight limit.
Yeah. Anyways, we jump back to the Crossbone Vanguard at this point, and we see Karozo talking to his right-hand man that's got like a kind of a Prince Valiant haircut. And they're talking about the bugs again. They don't show us what bugs are, but they say, "Oh, okay, once we're done with the initial test here, we're going to use bugs to destroy humans on the moon and Earth." And I was like, "Oh boy, I didn't catch that the first 2 times I saw this." So I think that implies that they must have thousands, if not tens of thousands or more, bugs in reserve, right? Ready to drop on the moon and Earth.
Or they're in the process of making them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, say what you will about Xeon, but Xeon won't wipe out everybody on Earth and the moon.
Yeah, Xeon, they had a base on the moon for a while, so
there you go. We also see this character named Anna Maria in the dub, at least.
Yep.
I mean, the sub, at least.
Yep. Anna Maria.
She was a Crossbone Vanguard pilot who was clearly in love with Zabine, but the moment she saw Cecily spending so much time with Zabine, getting such close tutoring and pilot training, she decided to defect. She just had enough.
Yep.
And she takes her mobile suit with her, which was one of those Berga or Vigna variants.
Yeah, she the doggy iris.
Oh, okay.
The Gee Iris. I don't know how to pronounce it.
She's got that one, and they painted khaki, and it looks terrible.
Yeah, you're right. She had this great like green looking color scheme before, and then they repaint it to this just awful. I don't know. I had a problem with. We may be getting a little bit into the mobile suits now, but I had a problem with pretty much the whole color palette for all of the Federation suits in this show. I've decided, or in this film. I don't know if it was just they all had this like weird tan look to them. Like normally I feel like a Gundam is pretty white, and I think that while the F91 was very white, the G Cannon in this show had a weird. It wasn't like white; it was like off-white. Just there was a lot of off-white, and it seemed really awkward to me. And then when they painted the Anna Maria's suit, the khaki, like you said, it added to the off-white just weirdness, I thought, on the Federation side. Maybe that was intentional, but I don't know. It just didn't work for me.
No, you can't paint mobile suits khaki. You can't paint them tan shades because it just looks bad. It looked okay in 8th MS team because they were in the desert, but we're in space now.
Yeah, that's a good point. The backdrop matters, right? It's all right. It's kind of relative, yeah.
Color palette rules.
And that's also why we hated Akihiro's suit from Iron Blooded Orphans, because it's so ugly.
Yeah, that too. Speaking of ugly, or the opposite of ugly, I thought Crossbone Vanguard ships look pretty cool each time we see them. They have a very intimidating look to them. They're like purple and green and gray, and yeah, I thought they were one of the more cool designs that we had in this somewhat lackluster movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think all the Crossbone Vanguard designs, from the ships to the mobile suits, I thought they were all pretty good. I really enjoyed them. I think out of the designs, if you're comparing the two sides in the show, the Crossbone Vanguard stole the show from a design perspective, in my opinion. I don't know what popular opinion is, but on the third rewatch, I was like, oh, those are pretty neat. We should see more of those.
What I also liked as the story kind of reached, its climax, is we finally see the F91 like in full combat. So we see the variable speed rifle actually work, and the variable speed beam rifle, from my headcanon, it's a normal beam rifle, but the particles coming out of it, they start changing speeds at which they exit the rifle, and somehow the beam shield of the Den and Zons can't really handle that change in speed. So the beam's able to go through them and destroy them. So we see some cool images of the F91 being able to, disable or outright destroy a bunch of Den and Zons that decide to take it on. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I wish they had done more with the variable speed beam rifle. I thought it was a pretty neat concept, and it was a little bit underused. And Seabook turned out to be like a great pilot. He was basically just killing everybody. Those Den and Zons didn't really have too much of a chance.
No, and they were an elite unit too. I think they were called like the Black Guard or something like that.
Yeah, the Black Squadron.
Yeah, led by Zabine. And I think at some point, like the rest of the Crossbone Vanguard, like assumes they were destroyed to the last man, even though they fly back. But yeah, what did you think of how the variable speed beam rifle looked? I thought that's a chunky rifle, sir.
It was a little chunky. Yeah, agree. It didn't. The F91 is like a weird design to me.
Yeah, it's got like that weird grill on the chest.
If you listen to the last few weeks, we've talked about F90 and we talked about silhouette formula F91. And I remember when we were reading and comparing those to F91, I said I liked the F91 more than the suits in those than the Gundams in those series. And I think that's still true based on the original designs. But I don't know. In this movie, I didn't think the F91 looked that great. I mean, you're right. The variable speed beam rifle was pretty chunky. Because it was so chunky, it looked kind of clunky when he used it. I wish he had used the variable speed more than the normal beam rifle and the bazooka, because they had him carry around the beam rifle and the bazooka quite a bit, and they didn't use the variable speed until definitely the last quarter of the movie in any serious capacity.
I completely agree with you about the design of the F91. It's almost better as a model.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, so I know
a very rare situation. Sorry, continue.
So I know I said in our F90 discussion that the F90 didn't really do anything for me, but if you go look at the Master Grade F90 that just came out, it looks great. Like, it is a great looking suit. And on the F91 side, there's a new statue that just came out of the F91 for the anniversary called the Gundam Metal Build Gundam Formula 91 Chronicle White version. It looks amazing. I don't know if it was just the animation style, but I think if we could see the F91 reanimated today, I think it would look a lot cooler. I'm going to send you this right here.
Okay. Oh, boy. That looks great. There's so much detail on this. It's like, I don't know. It's almost like the designer of the new Gundam decided to update the F91, right? It just, God, it looks beautiful.
And look at the VSBRs look great in this version.
Yeah, they definitely look less clunky than they did in the animation. In the animation, it looks like he was holding like a Hershey's cookies and cream bar, and just blasting away Den and Zon.
and one of the best parts of the F91's design is the heat fins that disperse the heat from the
shoulders, right?
Yeah, from the shoulders, and we don't really see those until the very end of the movie. I think that's such a shame because the shoulder pads are very early 90s, late 80s. They're pretty big, but when you put the fins out, it looks a lot better.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool actually, and I'm not sure if having the after images somehow made the animation not as crisp as it could have been, but F91 does not look as nice as we think it would for a standalone Gundam movie.
I think I actually like Char's Counterattack's animation better than F91's, even though F91 is 3 years newer.
Yeah, Char's might not be as crisp. I think F91 is a little bit more crisper, but Char's has a charm to it. A simple charm to it. But yeah, F91, not the best looking as it was animated. Okay.
But back to Zabine and Anna Maria. I really liked Zabine. I thought he was a cool character. I thought he was one of the best characters in the movie.
An honorable enemy, I'll say that. He definitely was a cool guy. Very much a Char stand-in, right?
Yeah.
It was way too obvious. But yeah, cool guy. He didn't really seem to take the whole nobility thing too seriously. I think he made a few comments, right? They were a little dismissive of it.
A little bit. I think he was more adept at reading a situation and knowing what was going on. I mean, by the time the movie's over, he's the only one that really knew exactly what happened. Yeah, on the Crossbone Vanguard side.
Also, I think at this point in the story, Cecily separates from Zabine and like their group, right? And she goes back with Seabook. But
this is the third or fourth decision by Cecily that makes no sense.
yeah,
Because during the battle where Anna Maria defects and she fights Zabine, Zabine ends up killing her. But during that battle, Cecily, gets separated from Zabine, and that gives Seabook a chance to talk to her. And so they finally talk, and Seabook's like, "Why are you doing this?" And Cecily's like, "Well, I thought you guys were all dead, and I didn't think I really had any other options, so it kind of seemed like a good idea." And I was just like, "That's it? That's your justification?" And she's like, "Yeah, I didn't really want to do it, but I just figured why not, or I might as well do it." I mean, that was pretty much what she said, right? There wasn't much beyond it.
Pretty much, yeah. I think she told Seabook, right, she wasn't really in the Crossbone Vanguard the whole time, so she was playing along.
Oh, did she? That wasn't as clear in the dub then. Maybe there's some translation issues there. But anyway, she's like, "Okay, well, I'll just go back with you then, since you're here." So he takes her, and then now Cecily has defected as well. So
Cecily's like a domesticated like dog or cat, right? She's kind of just loyal to whoever she's nearby. Whatever humans happen to be in the room, she'll like wag her tail and like go along with whatever's happening.
Yep.
At this point in the story, Zabine gets back to the Crossbone Vanguard after everybody assumed his whole unit got wiped out. And I think Karozo finds out that Barrett didn't come back with him. And he says something really interesting. He says, "Well, if she died in battle, the old man won't complain." What did you take that to mean, Brian? That like, I took it to mean Meitzer would be happy she died gloriously in battle, so now she can kind of be presumably immortalized as a Crossbone Vanguard martyr or hero to the people.
I think that's probably on the right track. I mean, there was that one scene earlier in the film where Meitzer said, "A girl who cannot control her emotions is no daughter of mine." And wow. He clearly has this idea that, she should be very what's the word I'm looking for?
Composed?
Like steadfast in what she's standing for, right? As the queen of Crossbone Vanguard. So yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if she goes out there in the name of Crossbone Vanguard and dies in battle, then she stood up for the cause, and even though she fell for the cause. And so I think Karozo is saying, if she died in battle, then great. She lived up to Meitzer's expectations. But if she deserted or she just kind of gave up, then he's never going to hear the end of it. So
right. So also about this time in battle, sadly we lose another character. Brigitte gets killed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this is also when we meet the bugs, right?
Yeah, actually, the Crossbone. Well, not even the whole Crossbone Vanguard. Pretty much just Karozo. Karozo is pretty much the only one that designed and knew about the bugs. He decides to test them on Frontier 1, and oh boy, these things were more brutal than I remember, Brian.
They were.
Right? I mean, wow, the humanity. They like cut through cars that have people inside them. They kill that one loudmouth Federation guy.
Mm-hmm.
They kill people in the shelters.
Yeah, the one in the shelter was particularly brutal because I think the normal bug released a smaller bug that got into the shelter, and then that bug ended up rolling over to a family that was huddled up and blew them up, like self-destructed kind of thing, which was just terrifying.
Yeah. There's really no escape from the bugs. They're very well designed. I must say though that they don't seem to do too well against mobile suits. I think it's probably because they don't have ranged weapons. If you're going to take down bugs, you need mobile suits. So I'm not sure the Crossbone Vanguard thought that far ahead.
Yeah. That whole bug scene, it started out very brutal, and then it got kind of silly, in my opinion. So it was brutal when they were killing the civilians. It was pretty sad when Brigitte or Bearded died. He started fending off the bugs, but he eventually got overwhelmed. His heavy gun, which he was in, the mobile suit, it lasted a really long time because the bugs sort of cut off all of his limbs except one, so he was kind of flying around just with one beam saber and like waving it back and forth trying to kill the bugs.
Spinning it. He was able to spin it. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and so, but he eventually was overwhelmed and the bugs got Bearded, which was a pretty sad death given that he was a pretty good pilot and a pretty level-headed person up to this point in the film. I really liked his character. He would have fit nicely into like the Ryu or the Slegger role if the film had been expanded into 50 episodes.
Yeah, definitely.
But then we got this weird scene where Seabook and Cecily were basically like, okay, well, we better kill all the bugs. And they like flew together and they started spinning their beam sabers, and all the bugs just kind of like rushed into them and all the bugs died because they were just rushing into all the twirly sabers. I don't know. That was really weird to me. What did you think?
I guess the only way my brain can kind of explain it away is that the bugs are designed to kill pretty much unarmed civilians. So when they switch to fighting actual mobile suits, they do it the only thing they can do and fly straight at you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an anti-mobile suit weapon. They can't really go toe-to-toe with mobile suits. They're doing their best, and they're really only built to kill unarmed civilians in a brutal atrocity.
During this bug fight, that's when we get more clarity that maybe there are some shenanigans afoot at the Crossbone Vanguard, because Cecily says, "Oh, there are many factions in the Crossbone Vanguard and that the bugs were made by Karozo, and that Zabine and her grandfather knew nothing." And I was like, you knew a lot. You apparently know a lot about the Crossbone Vanguard, given you've only been there for like, I don't know, a few days max,
3 days
right?
or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was weird. So I was like, Karozo, is he essentially planning a coup? Is Meitzer more or less just some senile old man that can't really run the show? I had a lot of questions. Maybe Meitzer actually knew and they just insulated Vera from what was actually happening. We'll never know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I particularly have a question because of something that happens at the end, but we'll get there. But Zabine clearly didn't know.
No. And he was not going along with it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was not. But again, this is one of those things where, had you had 50 episodes, this would have been a long simmering sort of plot point that would have been explained, I think. Like, I think in the series version of this, I think Cecily stays with the Crossbone Vanguard for 10 to 20 episodes.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, or who knows, half the series maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll never know. But what we do know is that at this point of the story, Brian, a mobile suit appears. A mobile armor appears.
Yes, because Cecily takes out the reactor that's powering the bugs. And so Zabine's team sees this and they head after her. But also Karozo sees this and says he will go out himself in the mobile armor, which is called the Rafflesia, because he says it's family business.
Yeah, and I thought this was interesting that, okay, mobile armors haven't been built since the 1-year war, right? You had transformable mobile suits, which could kind of have like a mobile armor version. But it was pretty much just a mobile suit in a transformed form.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But there was also like the Psycho Gundams. You don't count those as mobile armors.
But they could turn into mobile suits that were just large, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty lazy transformation, right? But
yeah, but getting back to my point, I feel like the lore explanation for this would be that Karozo, being his age, he probably remembers mobile armors. Like, I'm not sure what exact age he would be during the 1-year war, but maybe he ran into them or he at least read about them and he was like, you know what, I'm going to build my own. But what I don't like about Rafflesia, I think it's a terrible design. It looks like a flower. Why couldn't they pick like a skull or something to go with the Crossbone Vanguard, right? Or a skeleton, or I don't know, like a skull hand, something. But the Rafflesia is just one of the worst mobile armor designs I've seen. And maybe what makes it the worst is that it has an exposed cockpit, because Karozo sits in like a fishbowl exposed to space.
Yeah, I don't actually mind the Rafflesia design except for the exposed cockpit. That part's really dumb.
Okay, I'll agree with you there. If they got rid of that part, it would have made more sense. But yeah, him in the exposed cockpit, it's not great. And I think Rafflesia might be the name of a flower. Don't quote me on that. So I felt like aesthetic-wise, that really clashes with the Crossbone Vanguard. There's no reason a flower would be chosen as kind of like their, what I assume under Karozo would have been like their lead, combat unit.
I took it that they wanted that design because of the tentacles. So I guess we should state what the design is. It's kind of this sort of flower/squid looking thing that has a lot of tentacles that Karozo kind of controls with his thoughts, I guess.
Right. He's a cyber new type, and oh god, this is when the writing just starts throwing things at you. He's a cyber new type, and his helmet has like these sort of LED wires, like dozens of them that connect to the Rafflesia in his cockpit, and that's how he controls it. He doesn't need to use his hands at all. And he says weird things during the battle with Cecily and Seabook. He says things like he was ordered to kill like 9/10 of humanity.
Yes. There's a lot to unpack here. Look, first of all, this battle's weird, right? So at this point, Cecily and Seabook have taken out the bugs, so they go out of the colony, and they see the Rafflesia coming at them, and they decide, okay, well, we clearly have to kill this thing. Cecily's like, yeah, that's Karozo. He's the real enemy. My grandfather knew nothing, and so she rushes in like immediately, which is probably the worst thing you could do to this mobile armor that has all these tentacles and stuff. And while she does shoot him quite a bit, she gets a few good shots in that at least on the surface create some explosions. The Rafflesia is kind of unharmed for the most part, and then he slices off half of her suit's head, like an arm and maybe a leg, I don't remember. And then Seabook in classic Tomino fashion, he's like, Cecily, get out of the way, I'll handle it. Like the man is here, I will do it. And that's when we start seeing the after images. But then Cecily is like heavily damaged, but she's still fighting Karozo. Karozo, like, he has her pinned down, like wrapped up in the tentacle things, and he rips off her cockpit, and Karozo gets out of his own cockpit. But like you said, he still has those LED wires connected to his head. So those LED wires must be like 30 feet long or something, because they stay connected to him as he goes out and talks to Cecily. And so then that's
without
when
a normal suit.
Yeah, which I guess he's a fully robotic at this point, because
I put down he had to be a cyborg, because this makes no sense.
Agree, totally agree. Because then that's when this weird conversation happens. Cecily shoots at him, and it hits like his arm, if I remember right, or his hand, and he shows no concern that he just got shot. And that's when I took it to mean that he was more machine than man at this point. And then she starts making fun of him. She's like, "You can't do anything without that mask." And then he says, "I can control machines with my mind, and yet you still look down on me." And then Cecily's like, "Well, you're just rebelling because Meitzer made you into a cyber new type." And at that point, I'm like, "What? How does Cecily know that? She was away for like 2 to 3 days. Did she know that from a long time ago? Was she withholding this the whole time?" I got the feeling throughout the film, that she didn't even know what a new type was. And now all of a sudden she knows that he is one, let alone a normal new type, but a cyber new type. And then that's when Karozo goes into the whole, "Oh, I was ordered to kill 9/10 of the population, so I had to change. My ego was expanded to do this, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, wow, man, we are condensing episodes worth of exposition into this one conversation in space, in the heat of the battle, which out of our cockpits, which is something you should never do.
It doesn't make sense though, because if Meitzer doesn't know about the bugs, who ordered him to kill 9/10 of humanity?
Yes, that's exactly what I wrote down. So he explicitly
Where did these orders come from?
Yes, he said, Meitzer told me to kill 9/10 of the population, but if he doesn't know about the bugs, you're right. That whole thing doesn't make sense.
Yes, and okay, this is clearly, the end battle of the story, folks. And if you recall, at the beginning of the movie, we got introduced to Lord Dorell. He hasn't shown up in an hour or more. The first villain we meet in a villainous looking mobile suit, who's clearly a leader, doesn't show up at the final battle.
You're right. Well, he was there, but he was always like not in the same area.
I think when they were fighting the F91, he like pulls back, right, or something like that. I don't.
Yeah, or he was just doing something else. Like he was massacring the Federation's troops. He really took it to him for sure. Do you think Dorell knew about Karozo's plan?
No, I don't, because I feel like he would have like wanted to be involved or something like that. But no.
Yeah.
This was clearly a very Karozo and like his right-hand man plan. They were essentially the only people running it. I would be surprised if anybody on Karozo's ship knew exactly what the bugs were either.
Yeah, speaking of people on Karozo's ship, so Zabine he flies over to Karozo's ship and he's like, hey guys, where's Iron Mask at? I need to talk to him. And the guy goes, well, he's out there in that thing, the Rafflesia or whatever. But that I can't tell you what that's about. And Zabine is like, what do you mean you can't tell me? Yeah, like I'm Zabine. Is this how Iron Mask operates? I think he says. And so then the guy on the ship, they must have agreed to like meet in person or whatever. So they get out and they talk. And Zabine is like, well, if I didn't know about the Rafflesia, then Meitzer didn't either. So he just like shoots the guy. Karozo's like ship captain or whatever. So that guy's done. So this is when you know that Zabine and Karozo are definitely not on the same wavelength. Zabine did not know about the bugs. But Zabine clearly believes that Meitzer didn't know about the bugs either. But then again, going back to the thing that Karozo said, how can that be true if Meitzer gave him the order to kill 9/10 of the population? So the only way this makes sense is if Meitzer is actually on Karozo's side and Zabine's wrong about his belief in what Meitzer does or does not know.
That kind of makes the most sense. Yeah.
Maybe Zabine is the only good guy in the Crossbow Vanguard, let alone Darrell. We don't actually know. Is Darrell with Zabine or is he with Karozo? We're never really told.
I could see Dorel going along with the bugs, but Zabine, he looks like a hired gun. So if it seems almost like since he's not an aristocrat, he wouldn't go along with it.
Yeah. Oh, and that was also part of Anna Marie's beef with him, that she believed that he was clearly trying to marry into the family.
Yeah, but I mean, can you blame him?
Oh,
right.
No.
Might not move up. Something else I noticed just now. The Rafflesia relies on tentacles with like beam weapons on it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's been decades since mobile armors have had bits, and Karozo didn't think to put bits on his mobile armor, which would have almost dramatically improved his odds, because fighting a mobile armor with bits, or really any mobile suit that uses bits, is hell. Right, because they just come from all different angles. They're very tiny and hard to hit. There's so many to keep track of, and he opted for tentacles.
It does seem a bit of a step backwards. I agree, particularly with the whole bio computer, which I don't know if the Rafflesia has a biocomputer, but Karozo did say, well, I have. There was that one point where he like reaches out to Cecily and he's like, I also have thought control powers too, and I was like, okay. And so that does seem like a natural fit for the bits. So you're right. Going back to a wire guided or a wire connected system is a little odd. I mean, I think at that point it was just more of an aesthetic choice for the film. But
yeah, well, at this point in the story, our heroes managed to defeat the Rafflesia. We also see after this victory near the end that Zabine really is a good guy, because him and some of his mobile suits fly up to the space ark, and they can clearly destroy it, since it's not only not firing at them, but it doesn't have its own mobile suits to protect it. But they tell him it's a refugee ship, and he just takes them at their word and lets them fly away.
Yeah, he also lets Seabook fly away.
Yeah.
Goes up to he flies over to Seabook, who's in at this point an F91 without a leg and maybe an arm as well, a little beat up from the battle with the Rafflesia. And Seabook is frantically looking for Cecily because she got blown away in the explosion. And Zabine kind of says, oh, he figures out that the pilot of the F91 destroyed the Rafflesia, and he says thank you for your trouble, and he flies away. So because clearly Zabine wanted Karozo dead at this point as well.
Right. Well, at this point, so many people have died. He's kind of like the only ranking officer left, right? It's
him and Darrell. Yeah. Yeah. But at this point, I think Darrell was already like, all right, I'm going home. But he wasn't on the scene at all.
No.
I don't really know that we even needed him in the movie. I mean, couldn't you just put Zabine in his place for the most part?
Pretty much. But again, this might have been, they wanted to establish characters maybe so they could continue the series. But at this point, the movie essentially ends. Cecily gets found by Seabook, and
doing very new typey things, right?
Like find her with your heart or whatever, your mind or something. Yeah. They find her floating in space, and they're reunited. And the end says, "This is only the beginning." And it's not the beginning, Brian, because this story was not continued in any way.
Well, in animation.
Not any direct way.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, at this point, you're right, the film ends, and there is literally, like you said, on the screen, it says this is only the beginning. And I know why they put that there, because they were planning to do a sequel. And if you're Tomino, you're thinking, well, this is what we want to go forward with. We want to expand on this. So boom, they put it up there. But then, yeah, you're right. I mean, we never got a film to work that that relates to it again. We got Victory Gundam, but that takes place further in the future and isn't really connected. So yeah, I mean, it was the beginning, but it was also the end. So it's not a false statement. It's just not complete. But the story is continued, sort of. We do see some of these characters again in Mobile Suit Crossbone Gundam, which is a manga that Tomino had a hand in creating. At least I don't think he's a direct writer, but the writer uses a lot of Tomino's notes, and I'm sure talks to Tomino about it. So,
well, what's interesting about at least the story is, from what I read, what happens immediately after sounds like it would make a great series. What I've read is that there's essentially a civil war in Cosmo Babylonia. Cecily goes back and essentially denounces everything Meitzer believes in. Meitzer dies almost immediately after F91. And it's a civil war. I think Lord Dorel probably leads the side that wants to stay in aristocracy, and she leads the side that, is anti-aristocracy. They battle it out. They lose control of the colony. And, years later, we lead into Crossbone Gundam.
Given that Dorel and Zabine survived, and obviously Cecily and or Bera and Seabook survived, I am looking forward to seeing what happens to these characters in Crossbone Gundam.
Yeah.
I think overall the film had potential, at least from a story perspective, but then the pacing and the speed with which the revelations happened really did a number on this film.
Yeah, it's almost a pity because the mobile suit designs for Crossbone Vanguard were great. They clearly had a very unique flavor, maybe not too far off from Xeon, but it was pretty interesting anyways. They laid down some interesting groundwork as far as like this possible Federation conspiracy that tried to help along the Crossbone Vanguard get started. It would have been interesting to see what other Gundams might have appeared in the story. If we would have gone to like the moon to see like maybe a bug drop operation on the moon or Earth, maybe at the climax of whatever season ending they would have wanted. But we never got there, and we'll never get there. The continuation of Crossbone just goes into a manga series, and it kind of dies there. That's about it.
Maybe Crossbone Gundam is on the list of things that Bandai Sunrise plans to animate for the next 100 project. I mean, seems pretty likely to me. I don't know. I think it's coming. Maybe not, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but maybe 5 years. I think after they get Hathaway's Flash, you might hear some rumblings. Or maybe not Crossbone Gundam right away, but they are, they just released Master Grade F90 recently. They're releasing some that F91 statue I talked about. I think there's at least 2 versions of the F91 in Master Grade form. So they are showing this era a little bit of love, and they did announce the UC Next 100 project. I don't know, it could be headed for an F90 kind of series to kind of refresh interest in this era, and then hit us with the Crossbone Gundam. I think the big thing you'd have to ask yourself, Isaac, is would it be worth it to redo Gundam F91 in some form?
If you do, this needs to be such a well done facelift, such a well written story that you'd almost want to do. You need to unicorn it, essentially. That's really, I think, the only way to redeem it. But I don't think it's worth doing it. This was a mediocre movie. It had some interesting visuals, but overall, not great writing, not great pacing, forgettable characters, Gundam by the numbers in not the best way, not worth rewatching too much, and some things you're better left to just leave behind and maybe move on with a newer story.
I pretty much agree with that. I think the only issue is then how do you get people to buy into Crossbone Gundam?
You turn that manga series into its own OVA, or you do another F series or Crossbone series that probably happened at the same time or in a different area.
Do you create the series that you're talking about, the fall or the split, as a lead into Crossbone Gundam?
You could. There's material for it, or at least it's referenced in Crossbone Gundam. I feel like it almost might be wiser to pick up after the manga and make your own story from there, because you'll just have so much more flexibility and so much more room,
After Crossbone Gundam, you mean?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but overall, I I'd like our listeners to comment their own thoughts on F91. Did you like it? Did you not? That stuck out to you? Because as far as I'm concerned, this is definitely probably the weakest Gundam movie. And well, actually, no, I won't say that because Double O had its horrible movie.
I know you've watched Gundam 00.
Yeah, that train wreck. But I'll say this was an attempt to stick the landing. They failed. They didn't stick the landing. And overall, M for mediocre.
While I agree with the conclusion, I think I'm more just disappointed because I did see the potential. I think I see what Tomino was going for. And I think it had potential. And then just function of circumstance, this is what we ended up with. And I don't think there's many Gundam fans out there where Gundam F91 is their favorite piece of Gundam media. So,
nope. But let me ask you this, Brian. How many Haros would you give Gundam F91?
Oh man. Well, I would give the first 30, 40 minutes a solid 7.5 out of 10 Haros. I would give the next rest of the film a solid, oh man, it's got to be 4.5.
Okay. Brian, how about for the whole movie? The full 2 hours.
Full 2 hours is probably a 5 out of 10.
Okay. Wow.
Well, look, I mean, if you're a Gundam fan, you got to watch the movie.
You have to watch it, but you also have to recognize that it's a bit of a half-baked idea, and the execution was less than well done.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's helpful to understand that going into the film, because I think it would be particularly bad for someone who's maybe not a huge Gundam fan, like maybe like someone who just goes to an anime convention, right? And all of a sudden they go into this screening room that's showing Gundam F91. They're never going to watch another Gundam series after that if they've never seen Gundam before. They're going to be like, what the hell was that?
This is a bad introduction to Gundam.
Yeah, which is ironic given that, it was supposed to kick off a new generation of Gundam, but I just think the result that we ended up with is probably not the one that everyone wanted. It's just unfortunate, I think. So I hate giving it such a low rating, but yeah, I don't. After the movie, I was like, wow, that was an interesting ride for sure. Yeah. Not maybe in a good way. So I think I'm gonna stick with my 5. What about you? How many Haros would you say?
I completely agree with you. At the halfway point, you're just gonna have to power through and see it through. But on my 5-point scale, I would give Gundam F91 2 out of 5 Haros.
Yeah. Okay, we're pretty aligned.
It earned it. Yeah. Without those Denenzans, it would have dropped to a 1.
And again, like I said, I think I'm looking forward to Crossbone Gundam. I think there's potential there. I think I'm just disappointed that it's sort of hidden behind all this extra crap you have to wade through first, right? If you want to find and read this thing that everyone loves called a Crossbone Gundam, you really need to watch Gundam F91 and then decide to keep going and then go try to find the manga, which is not even officially translated. So I just think that's a large barrier there.
Yeah. Well, if you're a fan of F91 or you recently saw it, comment below. Tell us what you think. Maybe you love it. Maybe you defend it. Maybe it's your favorite Gundam anime ever. I don't know how, but maybe it is. So comment below and tell us all about it.
And maybe leave us a comment about what we think is probably the bright spot of this film is the mobile suit designs. What was your favorite design on the Federation side? Maybe you were a fan of the heavy gun, which was sort of the GM replacement, or the F91 itself with its cool beam fins and after image attack and the variable speed beam rifles. Or maybe you're like Isaac and really love the Crossbone Vanguard showings. Maybe you really enjoyed the Denenzans, the Vignaginas. They were pretty unique, and I thought that was a bright spot in the show. So let us know what your favorite Crossbone Vanguard design was, your Federation design, and any other thoughts that you have on Gundam F91. It was certainly an interesting ride. It was fun, if not a little jarring, to rewatch it after all these years.
Yeah. You know what I want, Brian? I want a master grade bug.
A master grade bug seems like something that would be ripe for 3D printing.
Ooh. Also forgivable too for like the flaws in it.
yeah, because it doesn't have to be completely perfect. So I bet someone out there has on like Shapeways or whatever that website's called. I bet there's like a formula for a bug.
I'd want it to have like a little hatch too that like lets out the little baby bugs so I can attack people inside their living rooms.
So brutal.
Just flies in and shoots them with a little laser. Pew!
All right, everybody. Stay safe this week. Do not get attacked by a bug.
Wear a mask so you don't catch a bug. Oh.
We'll catch you next week. Or maybe you're like Isaac and really love the Crossbone Vanguard showings. That the Vignagina and the
Berga something
fucking names.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Bandai.
Denon's
Simple
on.
names, please.